Okay, so my work schedule being what it is right now, I have less time to dedicate to my knitting, so you won't see as much as I'm used to showing you. So hello everyone, welcome to my very small YouTube channel about knitting. My name is Isabelle and I am in France. Today it's gonna be a regular knitting adventure episode where I show you only work in progress. So if my mistakes, my hesitations and my accent do not bother you too much, please stay tuned. First, what am I wearing? I'm wearing my beloved, and as I'm showing it to you, I think I may have been wearing it last time again. My beloved sleepover. It's the Emsworth by Isabel Kramer. I'm just coming back from work and it's already very late in the week, so I was thinking that if I do not record today, I won't have enough time to edit and post it on at the end of the week. So I decided to record right now. So it's the Emsworth by Isabel Kramer. I've been wearing it a lot, either with white t-shirts or white shirts. And this is the way I went to teach very early this morning, and it's quite late. So yes, I'm wearing that sleepover or vest, I'm not sure how you say and if there is a preferred term for that, a lot right now. And I think it's the perfect transition piece for transitioning seasons. We are in autumn, in fall right now in France. Temperatures are still quite warm and pleasant in Normandy, 20 degrees Celsius, so it's perfect timing, perfect time. So yes, a vest with a t-shirt or a shirt is the perfect way to be dressing up, and I need to be knitting a lot more of these. Okay, so what have I been working on? I made an effort this weekend to knit on my Fleur Shawl. The Fleur Shawl I knit with, you have it on the wrong side. I knit with Nutiden that Caroline sent me and so generously sent me. And I made the effort to make that bubble row. This weekend, it took me a whole weekend to knit 2 rows, so it's one row with bubbles and one row where you knit back to the beginning to the right side. And now I need to knit the 7 rows of the contrasting or main color and a last bubble row, then I can bind off. So not much is left to do on the shawl, and of course, as you are increasing in the middle part, which is here, and on either sides, I'm just going to show you that way. My needle is not large enough to show it all to you, all expanded. It's quite big, and I think it took me an hour. It took me an hour to knit the bubbles. I don't think I measured the plain knit row, and I'm still making the big bubbles. So you will have big bubbles on this one. I know some people have made, and the sample is more discrete bubbles, but I was thinking I'm making bubbles. I don't like much to be making bubbles, so I'm making bubbles better than big, quite big and very, very apparent, so noticeable. So Ramses is on the table. So yes, now I need to knit and knit and knit and knit with the pink color, a last bubble row with the white, and I bind off. So I do hope that next time I'm talking to you about my work in progress or my knitting projects, I do hope this one is going to be finished. I'm not going to elaborate further about my knitting experience with Nutiden. I'm gonna attach the video where I just talked about all the unspun yarn that has been given to me, and some of the stories about these yarn, and the stories about around the people who gave me, and my knitting experience with unspun and how I had to adjust my knitting. So I'm going to leave the details of the video down below, where you can go and see how I had to adjust my knitting, and how much I love the finished fabric, how light it is, how warm it's going to be. And yeah, I will never be able to thank everyone enough for sending me these beautiful yarn with, and giving me the opportunity to be knitting with them. Okay, next one is the one I will have, I guess, the most to be talking about. It's the Barbara sweater that I'm knitting. The pattern is In a Knitting Life, back to first. I need to read it because I'm sure I'm butchering that name. From Marianne Isayer, and once again, one of the lovely yous sent it to me. So I'm knitting Barbara. I'm going to place a picture. I think it's on this side. I'm going to place a picture so that you can see what the sweater looks like a bit easy. It's going to be better for you to have a look there on a picture rather than me opening the book. And Barbara has a very special construction. So you see this one, I have knit quite a bit on it. You start with the bottom, and so you knit, where are you? Yes, you are here. You knit the bottom part, the ribbing, the bottom ribbing, and then you start with the pattern. This pattern, you may recall, I asked you if I was going to be doing more of the darker background with the light motif, or more of a light background with a darker motif. It was 50-50, and I decided to go the same way the pattern calls for. That means a darker background and a lighter motif. I think partly because I thought the motif, the work, the color work, which was better showing this way than the other way around. I will also place on this side another picture where I can show you both of my samples to see what it looked like. I don't have them anymore because I unraveled. So as I was saying, you start here. You start at the bottom, you knit the body, and you cast on for the sleeves on the sides. And I don't think I have stopped. Have I stopped? Yes, I have stopped my needles, so I can show it to you. So you don't cast on, I'm sorry, you increase for the sleeves. And I'm about, not quite, but I'm about where I will start to be shaping the neck opening and the shoulders. So you need a bit more fabric on the shoulders than around the arms. So you shape that with short rows. I haven't read everything, so I guess you kind of knit a neck opening, maybe you bind off and you cast on stitches after that. I haven't read the thing anyway, but it's all knit in one piece. So once the opening for the neck is done, you go with short rows, I imagine, to shape the back shoulders, and then you knit the back, because I think this is the front, and I'm not even sure you start with the front. So I'm gonna be standing up for you to see the whole thing, and it's gonna be marvelous. So okay, there you have it. So that's the bottom. That's the bottom. Okay, this way. And then you see, maybe it's gonna fall that way, maybe. You have the increases for the sleeves. And I am about here, so it's gonna be maybe a bit lower. It's gonna be a bit longer. I did a bit more ribbon than what the pattern called for, because I was thinking it was going to be maybe a bit small, and I did a bit more repeats here in the body. So if it is not the way I like it, I may have to cut and remove a couple repeats to make the ribs again, but I don't know what I will be going to be doing. But anyway, I'm respecting the pattern for the smallest size regarding the sleeves and the rest of what I'm going to be having to knit. Okay, so for the Barbara sweater by Marianne Isayer, I'm using yarn from Lenal West. So the dark one is the yarn that is made with all the fleeces, black and white, that are mixed up, and you get something like kind of a brownish gray I would say. And the light color is the same, exactly the same yarn with just the white fleeces, or the creamy yellow, creamy white fleeces, buttery yellow. That makes that very contrasty color work. It's very rustic yarn. It's a sports weight, so my yarn is a bit bigger than what the pattern calls for, so I have to adjust and calculate a bit. So I'm knitting the smallest size, and as I said, with the smallest size I was afraid the body was going to be a bit too small, so maybe it was a mistake. So I'll see if I arrange that, or if I live with a longer sweater. Or maybe what I could do, what I was thinking, is read ahead of time and see if we start shaping the back or the front. I think it's the front, but and I will have to read to see if the shaping for the back is exactly the same as the shaping for the front. If it is, I may use that as the back and knit again and maybe one repeat less, and arrange things so that the front is a bit less long, a bit shorter, and so that way I can arrange with the length of my body. But anyway, you can see here one sleeve, and when you will wear it, the sleeve is going to be that way, and the body, the color work, is going to be that way. And I think it's just a very, very, very unusual look, because it's not an unusual construction. When I was a teen in the 70s, we used to knit flat and flat only. And I have already made sweaters with that kind of construction. When you start with, usually you start with the back, shape the arms, make a hole, knit the front, and you just have to sew under the arms and on the side. So that's not something new, at least not new to me, but anyway, it's not the type of construction that is much used right now. Yes, sorry, I interrupted because I heard my fridge going on, and I usually turn it off when I start recording, but I forgot. So I'm just going to show you the other side. So you see it upside down that way. The pattern is not difficult at all. The stitch motif is not difficult at all. It's on 6 rows. And you do have to work quite a bit on 1 row out of the 6. So it's not that difficult. I have the pattern, the stitch motif, completely memorized, so I don't have to look for that any longer. And I did memorize it in a couple motifs. It's not difficult at all. The rest of the pattern, the construction, being a bit less usual for now, I have to read ahead and decide what I'm going to be doing regarding the size of the sweater. But yes, it's back to back to my teens. It was back to 12th by for Marianne Isayer, but it's back to my teens. And I guess if you've been a teen in the 60s, 70s, early 80s, not late 80s, I'm sure you are already used to that type of sweater construction. And the yarn being very rustic, it has a very nice stitch definition. I placed it away. A very nice stitch definition. The yarn is very stiff, so it's very easy to knit color work with a yarn that holds on itself very well compared to unspun that just vanishes into nothing just by looking at it. On this one, you can hold your yarn very tightly. You can pull on the yarn to make the little motifs so that you have enough color for the color work. This yarn, to me, is very well suited to this kind of motif, and I'll see if the yarn relaxes when blocking. When I knit the Emsworth slipover with the white, it's the same yarn. And when I knit the Highland Thistle sweater with this one, blocking did not relax the fabric that much. I think that now that I've been wearing it a lot, at least this slipover a lot, the yarn relaxes upon wearing. I feel, I'm not sure this is something usual or not usual, because I haven't been wearing the Highland Thistle sweater as much as I've been wearing the slipover, but it got to be not quite softer, but more drapey. The initial fabric is not drapey at all. That's what I was trying to say by relaxing. It's not drapey, and my Highland Thistle sweater is not drapey at all. So we'll see how it goes, but if it is not that much, not too much, if it doesn't have too much of a drape, I don't think I will be mad. I think this type of pattern and sweater can be beautiful with a non-drapey yarn. That's what I was trying to say. Okay, so as I said earlier, this is all I have to show you. My work has been quite, the workload has been quite heavy, and I've been going to bed much earlier, so much less knitting during the evening. And I did knit this weekend, but it doesn't compensate and it doesn't make up for all the knitting I usually do during the evening. So be it. Also, my mind is kind of busy and stressed out, and so I'm going to be giving you a little life update if you are interested into my life and adventures. If you are not, you are very welcome to just stop here. I'm thanking you very much for being here with me, and I really hope I will see you next time. Okay, so life updates. With my mother, I spent a lot of time on the phone with her. We had just to arrange things. Nothing difficult for me, nothing difficult maybe for you. It was extremely difficult for her, even though it was with the people who are taking care of her. There are big decisions to be made, not for her to go into a special facility or home for people, elderly people like her. She's not ready yet. But there were other decisions to be made, and it took a lot of time to explain and have her do the right thing. even though I was certain people around her would help her do the right thing, and we talked, and all was there was no doubt in my head, but there was a lot of difficulties for her to understand. So I spent a lot of time with her on the phone. As I'm working early morning, late at night, I can't call her morning and evening the way I'm used to. And she calls me anytime during the day, crying, I haven't heard your voice, I haven't heard your voice. So it's quite heavy on my mind. But nothing more, nothing less than the usual for her. What has a bit changed is about my own health. We're not yet where I have to have surgery, but the surgeon had me make other exams, a scanner and other things, and I'm going to go see him again in a couple of weeks from now. He read the exams, and he called me and said, we need to talk. Okay, so I know what that means. So that's one point that has been stressing me out. Less now. It's quite surprising that I feel a little bit less stressed now than just before going to go see the surgeon. And my youngest son said, but you know now what is ahead of you. And when you stress out, you also stress out more when you imagine for the worst. Now, maybe it's the worst thing I had imagined, and I would need a hip replacement. That's what the surgeon told me. But quite surprisingly, it stresses me out a bit less now that I know what's ahead of me. So we'll see how it goes. I need to see him again. He had he asked me to do some. I will try to find the right word in English. I haven't checked. I'm sorry. Okay, the word in English is just injection. It's not the word in French. In French, it's infiltration. Infiltration being kind of like an ingress during the war. You sneak in. So that's the word that the translator gives me. So you have a needle, and they inject cortisone or anti-inflammatory medicines based on cortisone, and so that it reduces inflammation in the knee joint. So that's what is asked me to be doing, because to him the problem is the hip, and we have to deal with the hip, even though I have less pain in my hip than in my knee. And also what he said is that when we deal with the hip, 90% of the time the knee problems and pain is relieved or is gone. So even though my knee is at the worst arthritis state than my hip, he says, in his opinion, and he have to see all the newer exams I've been doing, in his opinion, we have to deal with the hip first, and then we'll see what happens with the knee. And if the pain relieves on the knee, we'll stay that way. Because I think a knee replacement is a more difficult surgery than the hip replacement. I think that what he said, the hip replacement, it's just one day, and it also can be done without under local anesthesia and not undergo a full anesthesia, which you go to the hospital in the morning, he does the procedure, and you go back home at night in the evening. So we'll see that. For the knee injection, the anti-inflammatory injections, I need not to be standing for 2 to 3 days. It's just impossible. I work almost every day, and so I arrange until Christmas, and after that it's going to be too late. So I'm going to do it very early on a Monday morning, and I've moved some of my teaching, so I only have to teach the next day at 5 o'clock. So it's not going to be full 48 hours, not 78, 72 hours. He said it's going to be okay. To him, it's going to be okay, and but I'll take a taxi to go back home and after the injection, and we'll see. If I can take almost 2 days of rest, he said it should be okay. So we'll see also how that goes. I already had an injection, that was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, when I had the first surge of the inflammation and arthritis pain. It did not do much at the time, and he said it may not do much once again. But we have to try and rule out this kind of procedure and see if we need to be doing other things. So the workload, my mother taking some of my time, but not much of my brain space, my time, but not much of my brain space. But my hip and knee arthritis taking a lot of my brain space, and I'm not as stressed as I was, but I'm still quite stressed. All of that does that I haven't been knitting as much as I used to. And I have been trying very consciously, very mindfully, to be very mindful of my knitting and placing joy and happiness in my stitches. And I do need that because when I do that and I listen to music, when I did, that bubble row on Sunday, even though the bubble row is quite difficult and you have to be very careful, because bubbles with knitted yarn or unspun yarn is not easy. You have to be quite careful, and all the other bubble rows, I never broke the yarn doing it. I broke the yarn 3 times. But with unspun yarn and knitted, and it's not difficult to split splice and repair the breaking. So I did try to place my mind into my stitches. And did I manage to place joy and happiness? I'm not sure. But I did manage to not think about other things while I was knitting. And that is already the beginning of the joy and happiness, because at least all the dark thoughts that are clouding in my head or in your head or above your head, all these dark thoughts are kept away if you focus on your knitting, or if I should say all those dark thoughts are kept away if I focus on my knitting. And also I was thinking about you when I was knitting, so not thinking about me and sending, and I am now sending all of the joy and happiness I could gather into these stitches during the weekend. We are on a Wednesday, I haven't knit since then, but all the joy and happiness I placed into my little stitches or I could manage to place in my stitches, I send them out to you. And I'm sending all this joy that also in my knitting, I'm doing these 2 projects thanks to you. I'm not talking about the powder puff caul. I've been knitting a bit on it, but not much more than what I did knit the other time, couple repeats, so you'll see it once it's finished now. But all these 3 projects, there is one of you in each and every of these 3 projects. The powder puff caul, the pattern and the yarn came from one of you in Australia. The knitted yarn came from one of you in Germany, and the book from the Barbara sweater came from one of you in Switzerland. So you are in my knitting right now, and I'm giving you back back by sending you what I can send you, joy and happiness and little stitches. And yes, I thank you very much for being here with me, and we'll see each other next time.